What's going on, Summoners? My name is Nathan Ng, and I'm here to bring you guys our high ELO tier list for patch 10.16. There were a ton of changes that hit Summoners Rift this patch, and we've got a lot of new updates for you guys. As always, we're going to be dropping some new tier lists, but the ones here are aimed specifically at players who are Platinum and higher. Make sure to stay tuned though, because we've got lists covering every single role. Also, make sure to check out ProGuides.com, where we've got tons of courses and even coaches who want to help you guys improve. Moving forward though, do me a favor and answer our question of the day. From your personal experience, what champion feel like the silent carries when they're on your team? For me, it always feels like Morgana players carry games from the sidelines. Clutch black shields are often expected, and it never surprises anyone when she does manage to land many Qs that she throws out during the games. She also got a buff this patch, so I'm sure that we'll be seeing more Morgana players carry out their games without the same recognition that other champions get. Let me know your answers in the comments down below, and with that finished, let's go ahead and start the video. Let's start off with top like always. Set's the first on our list, and he got hit with the hard nerf this patch. His W damage has been reduced from 80 to 180 to 80 to 160, and his E damage from 50 to 170 to 50 to 130. As a result of this nerf, we've already decided to move Set down to the B tier.
Wait, really?
This is a ton of loss damage, and it's definitely going to impact him in low and high elo. With a more one-dimensional approach to fights, what makes Set's an attractive pick to many is how hard he hits with the sheer number of value that he brings with all of his abilities. Hitting his numbers hurts what makes him strong, and we don't think players will be taking these nerfs too lightly. Next up is a buff to Fiora. Her Q's cooldown has been lowered from 16 to 8 to 13 to 6 seconds, and the cooldown refund lowered from 60% to 50%. From a first glance, this change has done wonders for Fiora. She was already an S tier pick, but we moved her up into the OP tier for this patch.
I like you.
For high elo players, the increased mobility has basically made Fiora borderline broken. She has a ton of outplay potential, and she does well into several tanks, as well as juggernauts because of how slippery she is. This buff helps her play more aggressively and also makes it easier for her to dip out of questionable situations as well. Finally, Jax got a buff as well. His E's cooldown was changed from 16 to 8 seconds to 14 to 8 seconds. Jax's early game becoming stronger allows him to control the minion wave in many more matchups now. Level 1s dictate level 2's power spike, and Jax's level 2 power spike isn't one that you can underestimate. While his late game isn't affected, this is a nice buff for all Jax players, and we're keeping him in the S tier.
I'm back.
We have cleaned up the list a little bit, and we have made a couple of other changes as well. First, we moved Kled down to the A tier. While he's objectively a powerful solo queue carry champion, the meta doesn't really suit him very well at the moment. Too many of the meta champions thrive against him, and he's not able to consistently snowball leads like he was able to in previous patches. In the same light, Singe has also moved down to the A tier as the meta has shifted in a direction our analysts didn't really expect.
This may hurt.
Tanks nearly aren't as strong as once predicted, and he is not an OP pick or ban anymore, well, at least in our opinion. Singe is still a solid pick because he's rather mobile and can quite be challenging for players to deal with, so make sure you pick him up or ban him still if you just don't want to deal with him. But we guarantee you that you won't be seeing him very often. As a follow-up to Fiddlestick's nerf last patch, we've also moved Fiddlesticks down to the C tier because he's simply unable to command the same respect as before. Without the insane sustain that he had, tank Fiddlesticks top is definitely past his prime, thank goodness. Fiddlesticks quite literally sucks right now. To conclude our top lane tier list, we have Darius and Fiora as our OP picks, followed by Shen, Wukong, Jax, Garen, Maokai, Camille, and Hecarim in the S tier. Alright, next up is the jungle. This is where the changes get more extensive, so I'll say it for the second time this video. Let's get started. Kicking it off in the jungle is Volibear. His movement speed bonus on his Q has been lowered from 15 to 35% to 10 to 26%. This stings hard, especially in high elo because this takes away a significant amount of Volibear's gank pressure. Nimbus Cloak was nerfed this patch as well, so this patch has been a double whammy for Mr. Bear over here. Based off of the early data of this patch, Volibear has taken a massive hit and he'll definitely remain in the A tier pick for now. He's on the border of B tier, but our analysts want to give players some more time to adjust to him being a little bit slower than before. There's definitely a good chance that his win rate can still climb up a bit from where it stands. Right now, he's just a little unbearable to play. Next up is Karthus. His Q's AP ratio was reduced from 35% to 30%. As you would expect, a nerf makes a champion weaker, and Karthus definitely isn't as strong as before. However, the long story short is that he's still pretty darn amazing. So don't count him out, because while we moved him out of the OP tier, it was only by a slim margin.
It's time.
Karthus is easily a pick or ban jungler because of his insane map pressure just by pressing R, and that also has crazy good scaling. A very similar nerf was to Kha'Zix, who would have guessed. Kha'Zix's isolated Q bonus ratio has been reduced from 120% to 110 this patch, and that should hopefully make it more palatable in games, including the ones where he's fed. Unfortunately, the nerfs hit Kha'Zix a little bit harder than they did Karthus because, well, this nerf was a little bit bigger. Less damage on isolated Q also means that Kha'Zix's clear speed took a hit, and all junglers know that clear speed plays a fundamental part in their games. We've got another winner this patch, and you've guessed it, well, probably because I mentioned it, and it's Evelynn. We talked about how we predicted that she would be OP this patch, and that's looking to be true. Her Q's cooldown ratio has gone up from 8 to 4 seconds, and the cooldown refund when hitting monsters has been removed altogether. In every situation, this is a buff. Even though her clear speed hasn't increased by any margin, Evelynn is now a stronger duelist because of her lower cooldown on her Q, and she also has better wave clear. We're still waiting to see if solo lane Evelynn makes her debut soon, but the possibility was opened up by Riot, so we'll need to be patient. Some daring player out there is probably figuring it out as we speak. Evelynn is our OP pick in the jungle for this patch, moved from the S tier.
Love me.
I don't know about you guys, but I've never thought to myself, I really want to play against an Evelynn. Well, here we are. Hecarim is also enjoying buffs this patch. His E's movement speed was increased from 25 to 75% to 25 to 100% over the course of 3 seconds. An extra 25% movement speed on a fully charged E means more mobility and more damage because of his passive. He's definitely going to be packing some more horsepower this patch. This buff has actually had a bigger impact than we would have thought, and we're moving Hecarim to the S tier for high ELO.
Face death.
It always feels like these small micro buffs are the ones that make or break champions in high ELO. Good on high ELO players because that simply means they know how to abuse every little resource given to them. And you can too with ProGuides.com. But anyway, Skarner was given another buff this patch. His Q's mana cost has gone down from 15 to 10, and his Q's total AD ratio has gone up from 0.15 to 0.2. Overall, this buff is a very small one, and our analysts are going to keep him in the B tier. One more buff might be enough to make him climb up to the A tier, however. If it's big enough, who knows, maybe he'll be moved up to the OP tier, but let's go ahead and live in here for a little bit, and just note that he's a solid B tier pick at the moment.
Bugs are gross.
His ultimate is a great tool for catching out opponents, and a single good pick can definitely win games. One final change that we made was that we moved Vanguard down to the A tier. He did nothing wrong, and it's a close one. Subjectively, you can still consider him an S tier, but our analysts felt that he was falling a hair short of the requirements to stay in the S tier pick. So many champions feel incredibly powerful, and we've had to make small adjustments here and there, and unfortunately, Vanguard got caught up in them. Our OP pick in the jungle is Evelynn. She is absolutely insane this patch, so abuse her while you can. Karthus is pretty close, so he leads our S tier, which has Kha'Zix, Zac, Nidalee, Kayn, Graves, Rek'Sai, Elise, Wukong, Fiddlesticks, and Hecarim following. Make sure to follow our channel, however, because a lot of these picks on our tier list, especially in the jungle, are really close to exploding out to the next tier or falling into the one below. With the jungle covered, let's go ahead and head into the mid lane next. For the mid lane, let's go ahead and begin with the nerf to Syndra. Unfortunately, she needs another nerf for competitive play. Her Q's damage has been reduced from 70 to 230 to 70 to 210. Although Syndra may have been a relevant pick for pro players, it's hard to say the same for solo queue players. I only remember her being abused in the bottom lane a couple patches ago, and I did not enjoy that at all. But these nerfs definitely will make her pretty weak. This nerf hits her mid to late game quite a little bit, and it's getting harder and harder just to justify playing her. While Syndra can be a great pick in certain situations, she doesn't really feel like a go-to blind pick anymore. Nocturne mid was also nerfed. His passive's cooldown went from 10 to 14 seconds, and the cooldown refund against champions and monsters went from 2 to 3 seconds. Ultimately, the goal of this change is to hit mid lane Nocturne without affecting jungle Nocturne. His sustain is going to be a little bit lower in solo lanes now, but he still deals an insane amount of damage, so we'll be keeping him in the B tier. Trust me, he's still quite literally a nightmare to deal with. For buffs, let's go ahead and talk about Ziggs. His passive AP ratio received a buff and now scales with 50% flat AP ratio instead of just scaling from 30 to 50%. Also, his passive damage against turrets has been increased from 200% to 250%. From minute 1 of the game, you have access to Ziggs' full demolitionist power. His goal is to take down turrets and speed up games, and this buff should definitely make it easier towards those strengths. We moved Ziggs up to the B tier, and we expect a few players here and there to pick him up and try to take advantage of these buffs. Akali is also receiving a small buff. Her Q now deals 5 more damage at all ranks, while her E's damage has been changed to physical to magic. In most cases, this is a buff because generally champions have higher base armor than base magic resist. While early on this might be a nerf against champions with low starting armor, it'll end up becoming a buff at some point in the game. This change is a very minute one, but even the smallest changes can tip the scale. For high ELO specifically, we've decided to go ahead and move her up to the B tier.
Come on.
We've also got a buff for Nico. Her Q's initial damage has been increased from 70 to 250 to 80 to 260, and the bloom damage from 35 to 115 to 40 to 120. Nico's wave clear and damage in fights has gone up, but unfortunately for her, but fortunately for me, this doesn't really feel like the biggest change. Without a doubt, more wave clear is nice, and it feels like this buff should make it a little bit easier for Nico to take lane priority. Data at the moment shows very little change for her though, so we're not going to be giving the change replacement for now, but we'll be continue to analyze the data and see if these buffs have a sizable impact or not. Check out our mid-patch update next week for our follow-up. Veigar has also received a small little buff, and that is increasing his MR by 2. Although this won't really matter against AD champions, 2 MR is a pretty nice buff against AP champions. 2 more magic resist allows Veigar to stay in lane a little bit longer, which means that he can farm his Q faster. And there will definitely be times where he'll be surviving with a sliver amount of HP because of it. Although this buff is actually quite nice, there's a lot of sacrifices that you have to make to play him, such as giving up some dignity, and we're going to be going ahead and keeping Veigar in the C tier for high ELO.
Stop laughing!
I'm not trying to complain about every single champion, but I personally believe that Yasuo was already in a good place. For some reason, Yasuo will receive some nice buffs this patch, maybe to keep up with Yone. His base MR went up from 30 to 32, and his R's damage was increased from 200 to 400 to 200 to 500. With more magic resist, Yasuo should be holding his own weight a lot better across a ton of mid lane matchups, and the ultimate buff definitely increases his kill pressure pretty significantly. Our analysts think that Yasuo is on the cusp of S tier, but think it's better to steer clear on the side of caution by only moving him up to the A tier.
No more running.
As a Yasuo player myself, I definitely am not excited about these buffs because he's going to keep getting banned, probably by my own teammates as well. The final thing that we need to talk about is Yone, who has been added to the game. We've got a lot of guides on our YouTube channel, so make sure you check them out to learn everything about him. For the sake of our tier list, however, we're going to list him as an unrated pick because he's a new champion. For other changes, we moved Twisted Fate down to the B tier because the nerfs last patch hurt him a lot. The increased cooldown on his W hurt him across all the ranks, and things just kind of aren't the same with him. Swain has been placed in the A tier as he's a pretty solid pick around all the way up to Plat to low Diamond. From there and upward, he begins to kind of taper off. Overall, Swain is quite strong, but not strong enough to merit an S tier status. That's it for the mid lane, let's go ahead and go to the bottom lane. First up, for the bottom lane, let's go ahead and address the nerf to Ashe. Her Q's attack speed went down from 20 to 60% to 20 to 40%. While this is a big nerf to her Q, Ashe is still able to provide a ton of value to her team because of her insane utility. Losing a little bit of damage isn't going to take Ashe out of the meta, rest assured. We've instead just moved her down to the S tier.
I don't miss.
Next is Tristana with the big buff. Her E's bonus damage now scales with crit chance. The damage now increases by 1% for every 3% crit that Tristana has. It goes all without saying that this is a huge buff. Her E's damage output has increased by a ton. All players are definitely going to be able to feel these buffs, and our analysts believe that Tristana will feel much more relevant in high ELO as a result of this change. She'll remain in the A tier pick for now, but we'll go ahead and keep you guys updated very soon if she needs to be adjusted. Lucian was buffed this patch as well. His Q's damage went up from 85 to 225 to 95 to 235, and his ultimate's damage from 20 to 30 to 22 to 34. These are insane buffs, and we're already seeing results from them. For the first time in a long time, Lucian is finding a ton of success in solo queue. We have moved him into the A tier. For a lane bully like Lucian, even small damage buffs like these are enough to allow him to pop off. Finally, Miss Fortune also received a small buff. Her base attack damage was increased by 2 from 50 to 52. 80 is always nice on a marksman, and there's no doubt that high ELO players are at least going to give her a try because of this buff. Miss Fortune remains an A tier pick this patch, but we think that she might have potential to be pushed into S tier.
Bang!
We'll let you guys know in our next high ELO tier list, but you'll get a general idea about it in our mid-patch update as well. To clean up the list a little bit, we moved Heimerdinger down to the A tier. While his win rates are pretty high, he's a niche pick and can't really thrive in every matchup, especially when his turrets can be outranged by the likes of champions like Caitlyn. One final change that we made to our tier list is that we've included Sona and Lux duo. They have been gaining a ton of traction and popularity with certain regions, and it's only a matter of time before they become meta picks for everyone. We've placed them in the S tier for now because of the insane amount of damage and utility that they provide. It's pretty oppressive to play against, and their scaling is absolutely insane. Our OP pick is still Caitlyn this patch, and our S tier consists of Senna, Draven, Vayne, Aphelios, Kai'Sa, Ashe, and the Lux Sona duo. Next, let's go ahead and go over the supports. We've got our last set of changes with support, so let's go ahead and get started. First and foremost is Karma. Karma has been a contested pick in high elo and pro play for a while now. She flexes into 3 different roles and is one of the strongest laners in the game because of her utility, poke, shields, and even sustain with her empowered W. In basically any team composition, there's room for Karma because of how versatile her abilities are. To take away some strength, Karma's Q mana cost has been increased from 50 to 70 to 65 flat, and the cooldown has been increased from 7 to 5 seconds to 9 to 7 seconds. This nerf is absolutely brutal as it takes away a huge part of what makes Karma so strong, her dominance during laning phase. We have moved Karma down to the C tier as a result. Bard has been one of the most influential high elo picks for a while now, and he's finally gotten a nerf. His base HP went from 575 to 560, and his W's full power heal from 70 to 230 to 55 to 215. It should be easier to contest the laning phase against Bard now, as he's a little bit squishier and also has less sustain to work with. Previously, we felt like Bard was way too strong because of his incredible laning phase as well as high impact during the mid to late game. This nerf should open up some more counterplay to him, and we moved him down to the S tier as a result. Next on the chopping block is Nautilus. His W's base shield has gone down from 60 to 100 to 45 to 85. Ultimately, this nerf is pretty big because breaking Nautilus's shield cuts his damage output pretty hard as well. Nautilus has been a centric part of the support meta for a while now because of his incredible lockdown and high damage output. He keeps a lot of champions in check just by scaring them off, but this nerf will definitely solidify his pick as a B tier pick for now. On the other hand, Morgana received a buff. Her Q's cooldown has gone down from 11 to 10 seconds. This buff is really nice and high elo players will definitely take advantage of it. Expect to see Morgana more in high elo as well as in competitive play. With 40% CDR, the cooldown on Morgana's Q goes all the way down to 6 seconds, which means that players can fish for pick after pick, catching opponents out of position and creating leads as a result. This buff feels insane when her snare kind of feels like it lasts 6 seconds anyway. Morgana has been moved to the S tier as a result of this change.
Justice!
Finally, Rakan got buffed this patch. The buff last patch didn't really do much for him, so he gets another one. His R's movement speed has gone up from 50 to 75% next patch. We definitely expect Rakan to become more popular as a result of this, and we also expect him to find a lot more success as well. 25% movement speed is pretty huge as it'll allow Rakan to more easily catch opponents with his ultimate for those montage-worthy plays. Rakan remains an A tier pick for now though, because he's still pretty far from an OP pick at the moment.
Am I good to you?
The final changes that we made is that we've added Swain to the B tier after collecting some data. Just like in the mid lane, he's a solid pick up until a certain threshold, but falls off heavily as he climbs higher and higher. Even though in very high elo, Swain fails to find success, he's still worthy of a B tier because he's still a prominent flex pick. Sona, on the other hand, is subjectively S tier, but A tier at least because of the pressure that she brings to the draft. With the Sona Lux combo being very strong, you can force your opponents to either ban out one of them or pick away Lux if Sona is taken. Sona scales incredibly well with or without Lux, however, and she's pretty happy to take any farm lane that she can get. Her win rates have been consistently high for several patches, even in elite play, and we've bumped her up as a result. As a result, our S tier on the support list consists of Senna, Lulu, Thresh, Leona, Blitzcrank, Janna, Bard, and Morgana. And that concludes our patch 10.16 high elo tier list. Thanks again for watching, and make sure you guys check out ProGuides.com as we have a bunch of resources aimed at helping you guys improve. Again, my name is Nathan Ing, and if you guys want to hang out, go ahead and follow me on my Instagram and my TikTok at Nathan_ING. Thank you guys so much for sticking it out through this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more content such as this. Until next time though, I wish you guys the best of luck on Summoner's Rift. Hope you guys stay healthy and stay safe, and have a wonderful day. Peace.